This podcast was made possible by our members on ArmchairHistory.tv. Use code ArmchairChats for 60% off of your first month. Welcome to the first episode of the Armchair History TV podcast. I'm very lucky today to have our first ever guest with us, Cody. He runs two popular YouTube channels, AlternateHistoryHub with over 2.2 million subscribers, and Pointless Hub with over 500,000 subscribers. I'm very grateful for his time today. Cody, how's it going?
It's going good. Thanks for having me. This is a nice little room you got here. I feel it's a big couch. Couch is a bit too big for me, but most furniture is typically big for me.
Yeah, it's very small. It's a brand new office. I'm happy to get it all set up for you. And thank you again for being our first guest. I've never done anything like this, so hopefully this will be the start of a new project for us. And again, grateful to have you.
Oh yeah, it's an honor. And it's I've been on a few many podcasts, so we'll get through this together. It'll be a good experience. It'll be fun.
All right, so I've got a few questions. One thing, though, that I do want to bring up before I jump into questions, do you remember the first time that we collaborated on YouTube together?
Oh, God, you're making me think years ago. I'm thinking, let me guess, was it something World War II related?
I think it was regarding, I think we did something on the Napoleonic Wars together. Oh. Now, I never do subjects like that, ever. I think you had done something on, I think it was on if Napoleon had won or had won Waterloo or something?
Let me look it up, because you're talking, I think we collaborated, 20... Okay, I'm looking at, it was what if Napoleon never fell?
Right.
It was 4 years ago. It feels a lot longer than 4 years.
Yeah, that's true. That's like pre-COVID kind of, actually.
And there's even, in the thumbnail, there's me, and then there's you, and it's your old avatar.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah, I was thinking about that today. Someone was asking me a question about when our next collaboration was or something like that, and I realized I stopped doing a lot of collaborations on YouTube.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever found, I think, number one, sometimes they're hard to coordinate with people, but I think as well, every time I do one, the video always bombs. It just so happens I pick a subject that doesn't do well, and I feel so bad that if their video does really well and I shouted them out and my video does super poorly, it's like... Yeah. And it never really seems to get all the kind of cross-promotion that you're all excited to do. You put a lot of effort into it, and then typically it's kind of ignored.
It's kind of sad because collabs don't really do the traction that they used to.
Yeah.
Like 7, 8 years ago, it would be like, oh, a collaboration's the biggest way of growing your channel. Mm-hmm. But now it's other than, you don't really do it as a way to grow each other's channel anymore. It's more of like if someone comes in just to do a skit.
Yep.
Or it's not really... And yeah, no, I think whenever I do a collaboration, it's not necessarily that the video performs badly, but I feel like the video is almost worse when every single time I make a video and I do it with someone else, it's almost like I fumble my words. It's weird. It's like the topic kind of falls apart. It's kind of like how you're good at something when no one's watching, and then as soon as somement's watching you,
right,
or you're working with someone else, then you just kind of fumble it.
Yeah.
I recently did it was supposed to be a collaboration with an alternate history channel called Potential History. Mm-hmm. Super, Possible History. But there's two different ones.
Yeah.
Potential History is the meme guy. Possible History is a super nice guy. He's kind of an up and coming alternate history channel, and I really liked his stuff, and I wanted to do a collaboration. So I came to him and I offered to do a collab, and he was like, "Oh, awesome! Let's do a what do you want to do?" And I was like, "Hey, I'm up for anything that you want to do." And he said, okay, so let's do something about the War of Spain and Secession. And I was like, okay, cool. So the plan that we were going to have was he was going to pick the side where what was it? I think it was France and Spain unify. That France and Spain would have unified under the war. And then I was going to pick the side where Austria wins the war and they stay on the Bourbons stay in the Habsburgs stay in control of Spain. And so I thought, okay, this is a great idea. Let's do it. And then I kind of was working on a Pointless Hub video, and a few weeks go by, and so it finally comes down to the last 2 weeks that we're working on this video, and I put the scenario together, and I'm looking at it, and I realize it's just not working. It's just not entertaining. Like, Austria keeping Spain is just not an interesting enough video idea to do. And I tried to do like a way of like trying to make it work, and I realized that he had the far more interesting video idea. So I felt embarrassed because I came to him for this collaboration,
right?
And it's just falling apart. And so I was like, hey, can we just like delay it a little bit so I can like try to get it to work? And it was one of those topics where it's like, you know how you try to work on a topic enough and then you realize it's just not working? Yeah, typically those just go and they just die in a corner and nobody has to know about it.
But when it's a collaboration, you've got the pressure, everything.
Yeah, you're on stage in front of people that you don't want to embarrass yourself in front of, and this is a guy that I'm trying to build a relationship with, and then I utterly shit the bed essentially. And I'm like, I felt so embarrassed, and the project fell apart, and I told him like, hey, upload your video, just make it like a standalone. And then I'll like give it a shout out in my next video. And so I gave it a shout out, but it wasn't the same.
Yeah.
And I still feel guilty about that, because it's like I had an idea, I wanted to do a video, I wanted to do this idea, and then it just turned into like, I either had to go all the way with like researching this topic for like 3 months because we're talking like 17th century Habsburg politics, or it wasn't something that you could just kind of make work and be interesting. But yeah, that's just the problem with collaborations sometimes. I think that's why I do collaborations with Emperor Tiger Star, and it's usually just because we're kind of on the same wavelength for just like, hey, let's talk about a hairy turtle dove video. And
I noticed that, Kim, and that did well, didn't it? I think that video did.
It did all
for
right.
The kind of topic. Yeah, I think it did all right.
Yeah, they typically. I mean, we're kind of starting to scrape the bottom of the barrel with hairy turtle dove topics. We're on like his like 10th to 11th like most interesting book, but people like us talking and kind of shitting on him a little bit. And I he's a nice guy, but I feel guilty.
Yeah.
Kind of being like, oh, his writing's not the best.
Yeah. One thing I want to bring up that I think you had mentioned to me earlier, and I discovered this myself when I was just going through Twitter. I remember looking at your YouTube page. I saw a community post. I think that was the video you were talking about that you had to delay or scrap. I think you actually mentioned that, if that was the video.
Yeah.
And then I was looking at that, and then I decided to go to your Twitter and saw it was all shut down. I saw it was like locked, and you put out a post, this dramatic post, you're done. And I want to ask you about that, what the reasoning was, and what happened with that.
Yeah, so I wasn't trying to make it super dramatic. I just knew that if I didn't have a final post, people would just be constantly asking me like, "Where are you? What are you doing?" So for the last year or so, Twitter has been getting just fundamentally worse. And I mean, it's already been kind of a bad site for years, but it was something that at least like, I don't know, I didn't feel like I had a problem with it. It didn't seem I posted like history memes. I would talk to people that I knew. It was more of like a version of Facebook, really, if anything, to me. But then in the last year, I don't know what happened with the algorithm or something, but it just became this kind of crazy nut house. And every single time I would go onto Twitter, I would just like actively have my day ruined because I'd see some absolutely insane take that I never pondered people had before. And like I saw one like a week ago, some guy was like, dragons are real. And it was just a whole thread about talking about how dragons were real. And I was just like, why am I still here? What am I doing? And I think it was the last debate. There was this whole political thing about like the Starfield pronoun thing. And I just saw a bunch of...
Oh, my gosh.
every YouTuber, every person I knew, they're all just getting involved in this political debate. And I thought, this is like the 5th or 6th, 7th time that we just do this. There's some big controversy that happens.
Yeah.
Everyone has their take. Everyone says stuff, and then they all get fight, and, memes are mud slung and all that stuff. And I thought, like... what? Like, it's only a matter of time before I say something dumb or I get myself involved somehow, or like even by accident, and it's like, my Twitter account has kind of exploded in the last year. I don't know why. It's just like memes that I would send like 3 years ago would never get any traction, and now I say some random thing and 100,000 people look at it, and it just became a thing where I'm like, okay, I'm playing with fire here. This is this is a thing where it's like I have a public image I want to at least uphold, and I know that if I'm gonna keep walking in this minefield, eventually I'm gonna step on a mine and blow up.
Yeah,
and I don't want that to happen.
It seems like there's it's like all risk, no reward type of thing.
Essentially
where it's like
is.
Either you're in risking yourself and your career, or risking just having your day ruined, and there's no reward ever at the. Even if you win an argument or you think you did, there's no conclusion. There's no satisfaction on Twitter at all, unless you treat it very, very casually to just like post a meme and close it out. But it's so tempting to, of course, see the notifications.
Which is essentially what I was doing for the last.
Yeah.
The last time I had an actual real political debate with anything was like over the Russia-Ukraine thing.
Yeah.
But like that was still like a year ago. Ever since then, I've basically just been shit posting, and really all it is it's just like what's the point? Like what am I, a meme gimmick account? Am I just saying things so a bunch of Twitter people can laugh at it? And it's like that's not really what my brand is. That's not what my channels are. I essentially was just kind of treating it like a personal Facebook account, if anything. And I thought, there's really no point in doing this anymore. And I don't know what it was. This final round just kind of, I just was done. I don't know why. And it was late at night, and I was browsing Twitter in bed for like every night. I wouldn't go immediately to bed. I would go to bed, and then I would browse Twitter for like an hour, and then I would fall asleep. And then I would wake up, and then I would browse Twitter in bed before the baby got up, and then I would be browsing Twitter during the day, and I realized that I had a problem too.
Right.
And it became a thing where it's like my brain is wired around that constant dopamine effect.
Yeah.
And it's like it's not healthy. It's not good to do. I'm wasting time. I realized that even my productivity was taking a hit because I would be working on something, and then at every other hour I would be checking Twitter and seeing what's going on. It's like nothing would change. Nothing important happened at all. And yet I would still keep checking it. And it's like, why am I doing that to myself? I'm only losing I'm losing productivity time. I'm losing brain cells, and it's actively making me kind of annoyed and angry. And the only thing it's really making me, Twitter's like a game, it's like a multiplayer game, It's like the only people you're there to do is to beat the other people playing the game.
Yeah, it's all competitive. Yeah. I don't think I've ever seen people work together to do something on Twitter, or like people coming together to achieve something. I don't think I've ever seen that happen. All I see is, and if somebody tries to, I saw a video that was posted. I want to try to find this channel's name because I was so surprised by this. I don't know anything about this channel. I don't know what the theme of it is, but it just appeared in my recommended. It's called Apologetics Roadshow. And he had posted a video. Again, I don't even know anything about his channel, but he posted a video which said, "They mocked my son's death. Here's what they didn't understand." And this guy, his son was born with some kind of disorder where his muscles weren't growing as strong as they should have. And he passed away. And people in Twitter they used that as an opportunity to like make fun of that for him and say, like, I'm thinking I think, like you were saying, they're getting better at or like people are training themselves on getting more of the likes and reactions. And the way they do that is just the more outrageous things you can say, the more hurtful things you can say. I mean, you'll rarely I get all the time an email that'll be a compliment that I ignore. But if you get something that's a deep insult over something, at least I ignore those too, but at least it riles you up a little bit. And if you're a little riled up, you're more likely to give in. You and I have had interactions where I think there was like North Korea supporters who were like coming after me, and you would jump in and it'd just be this huge brawl. So it's never, I had to recently give up most of my Twitter access. I give it to, I have a marketing director who handles sponsorships for the YouTube channel, and I just gave him the responsibility to Twitter or any of the other social media pages. So I can still have a presence and post things and get some traffic back to the YouTube channel, but I don't have to be the one driving. And if there's a mob who wants to come after me and freak out over something, I can just turn it off. But he can still post, and he won't care for me. So I think that's the kind of strategy I've used. So I've been semi-quit on Twitter secretly just by having somebody else manage it. So I can still keep it alive, but yeah, I don't want to go through and see all those things. either it's just upsetting or at best it wastes time, even if it's entertaining.
Honestly, it's really freeing because it's like when you're angry at a game and you keep getting mad at this game and you throw your controller and stuff like that, and it's as soon as you just stop playing the game and you stop interacting with that, it's still there, but you're not an active player. You don't have a target on your back anymore. And I think that's a really, sad thing about that guy's kid.
Yeah.
But that's just the reality of putting anything online. If you have any information about yourself, if you share anything, they will use that as ammo against you.
Yeah, it's all weapon, exactly. Yeah.
Oh yeah. And so it's like for me, I've never shared a picture of my son. I've never talked about my kid. I've never talked about my personal stuff because I know that if I do that, that's someone's gonna use that against me.
Yeah, it's not worth it. It's all it's all risk. There's no reward to anything that can come from that. But
100%.
if you keep it for business, at least the reward is. I had reached out, or I had done a live stream recently, and was talking about card games, and we're working on a card game, and one guy who just happened to be watching the stream with only like 100 people in it or something was the creator of Undaunted, which is a popular World War II kind of like board game, card game.
Yeah.
And he had posted in the comments, and then he posted on Twitter, and then he added Osprey Games, who then emailed me. So I'm kind of talking with them now.
Wow.
But that's cool where there's the reward of like if you keep things to business, then you can connect with other people or between you and me. But the moment you bring in personal life, there's no, what are you going to be rewarded? You're not going to make a connection. If you're going to meet a friend, it's going to be in person and outside.
Yeah.
That's where you share your personal space. But I feel like online, it's not that you have to be fully anonymous. It's just that any presence you do have, you keep it toward work for the most part. And if there's no...
And that's why I see some, I'm not going to name anyone, but I see some YouTubers that like, they have their entire history, their entire personal history out there.
Yeah.
And their work has nothing to do with their personal history anyway. But then they're just like getting involved in this stuff. And I see other random Twitter users that obviously have a beef with them, and they throw in things that they've said or views that they've had or whatever. And it's like, that's just why, you're oversharing. It becomes a thing where it's like Twitter is an addiction. And if you overshare, it's a problem. So I've learned it's a thing that you got to learn to kind of build up. You got to not share every single thought.
And
that's
Twitter's
in your
so
head.
easy to do that. It's so easy to do that on Twitter. Just share what's in your head.
Oh, it is. I caught myself the day after quitting. I was sitting and I had a funny thought, and I was like, oh man. And I instinctively picked up my phone because I was like thinking like I'm gonna share this thought, and I thought, oh yeah, I quit. So like, what? That's something that's kind of where your brain is adapted to that. You just can't have a thought dissipate in the wind anymore. You have to share everything that you have with a bunch of people who like.
They're ready to weaponize it. So you're just giving people ammunition, and it's just all a backfire.
Oh yeah, for sure. And so like anything I've said, especially in the last year, it's just been memes and shit posts. So they can't. I don't think I've said a genuine opinion other than something sport related in the last year.
Yeah.
Because if I say something sport related, nobody cares about that.
Yeah.
But if you say anything genuinely political, people are gonna hate on that. But yeah, I mean, it feels freeing. I will admit, I do still have a problem with lurking. I have gone back, and even it's only been like a few days.
Yeah.
But I will still lurk. But I think even just not posting is the best thing.
Yeah.
Because I've just removed myself from that. So even if I do sometimes on occasion go back and see the shit show, I'm not contributing to the shit show.
Right. Yeah, I think that's the best way to do it. That's kind of what I was doing. I have my social media manager, but I can still check on it if I want to, but I don't have to engage. I think that's the best way.
That's the one problem is that like Twitter is a shit show. It's bad, but also everything happens there, or at least on. I can't really think of another site that stuff actually happens on, but that's where everything is. And even take like Moist Critical. I definitely know that he actively uses Twitter all the time, because if you see whatever's trending on Twitter that day, he'll have a take on his channel that same evening. And it's like, that's just what whatever is happening on that site. So I don't want to 100% be like away from that, but I also don't want to contribute to it.
Yeah. Well, I think one thing that's interesting is Twitter doesn't have a very large user base compared to other social media platforms, but you don't hear about things happening on Instagram or the beef there. And I think it's just because even though Twitter is a smaller platform, it's built for just like the things we were saying, oversharing and then those opinions being weaponized, those quick opinions you rattled off that were in your head being weaponized and turned into drama and arguments. And it's the best platform for that. So despite not having a giant user base, it can fuel all the controversy and the big drama that people want to talk about. So
it's like a meme arms race if you think about it. Right. It's like because on Instagram or Facebook or whatever like that, they all have insular communities where they're not actively fighting to the death with each other. But on Twitter, it's just constant warfare.
Yeah.
So you always have to. Everyone's always trying to upgrade their, I guess, their asshole power essentially, or whatever their snarky memes or anything, and it inadvertently makes hilarious memes by being an asshole, but it just creates this whole den of negativity. I mean, it's both the funniest place on the internet, but also it will destroy your brain.
Right.
And yeah, I don't know. I think for me, I just realized I've been kind of changing my personal habits lately. I've quit a bunch of I've quit drinking. I've quit nicotine in the last year, and the way that I did it is I essentially just stopped. I took everything and I threw it in the trash. Yeah. And I realized that was the best thing for me. It's like I have a moment where I realize I want to quit. I'm done, and I throw it away and I just tough it out. And that's what I kind of had to do with Twitter. Is I just okay, I have to make this post and be like, I'm gone and I'm done, because if I don't,
that's gonna be tempting to come back.
I'm gonna not leave. I mean, even if it's like a month or 2 or 3 or 4, I'm gonna eventually say something stupid or get in beef with the wrong person. Even if I'm in the right, it doesn't matter, because I'm still gonna get dragged down. And so I just had a post that said, I'm done. Yep. See ya. This was a good run. And I just called it. And so it's like, people only need to really see me on YouTube. I tried a thing on Twitch. I tried to do Twitch, and I'm still doing Twitch, but I was doing it once every other day, and I realized that people, it's kind of not good to do that either, right? Because I do YouTube stuff. The only way people really need to interact with me is whenever I upload a video, and I think that's something this year I've really had to realize is that the most important way I'm going to interact with anybody is through these videos that I make. So I'm just going to keep it at that. Yeah. Why not?
I'd be curious if you use I've done YouTube live streams, and it's good because you're getting that same audience who subscribed for you, and they don't have to leave platforms. So I think I did Twitch maybe one time and never had any success with that. But I do use YouTube live streams on occasion, especially if I have a specific goal, like trying to get an opinion or a poll. I think it's actually somewhat useful to just interact with the community. Yeah. But you can't. Those 9-hour gaming stream, if it takes up the whole... I know some people do that kind of thing, and that could end up being a time sink. Before we continue, I'd like to take a moment to thank our supporters on ArmchairHistory.tv. AHTV is our own streaming service that hosts hundreds of history videos with new exclusive content released every single week. By signing up today, you can listen to all of our podcast episodes ad-free and on the go using our mobile app. Additionally, if you upgrade to the Sarge or Officer tier, you gain access to the complete version of every podcast. Use discount code ArmchairChats for 60% off of your first month.
I would love to do a YouTube Live, even just once in a while, if I knew it didn't destroy my algorithm, and especially with Pointless Hub. Pointless Hub's in such a position that I don't want to mess up anything with it algorithmic.
Oh yeah, it's doing so well.
So I just kind of want to I started pushing the Twitter just because, well, not the Twitter. There's too many social media sites with a T. I pushed the Twitch because I knew that at least that was a separate platform that the algorithm wasn't going to get messed with. And even then I realized I was promoting it way too much in the community tab. So I kind of stopped doing that too. But it was just like Pointless Hub. It was just those videos. I didn't want to interrupt the growth that those videos had with YouTube Live.
Yeah.
Maybe Alternate History Hub
Yeah.
eventually, but it's yeah, I don't know. I think I'm almost too old. It's weird. I think we do this YouTube stuff, and our ideas are formulated through scripts and writing everything down and having everything timed out and edited and stuff like that. And when you do live streaming, I realize I'm not as funny as I thought I was, and two, I have to struggle trying to formulate thoughts, and it doesn't come off as snappy as a YouTube video does, which makes me sad. But yeah, if people kind of realize that when you're live streaming all the time, when it's just like, oh yeah, this guy isn't as funny. I tried to do a review of Barbie on Twitch once, and I realized, oh man, if I don't have my thoughts laid out in front of me, everything comes off as just sound bites, and that's not fun to do. Yeah, it's just different. So anyone that can actually live stream and constantly talk and formulate their thoughts on the spot, I find that incredibly impressive. My brother can do that like so well. He's far better at live streaming than I am, because I just sound like a goblin when I try to say stuff off the cusp.
Yeah, I was about to say there's some appreciation. As much as certain Twitch streamers can be, you could look at it and they're like, they're just playing video games all day, every day. What is there in doing that? I think the one thing is just not only to be social and funny and improving on the spot, but also the fatigue you get every time I've done a live stream. I always start so strong in the first 15 minutes, and if you ever go past, I just can look down and I know it's been 1 hour or 2 hours. Once my body starts to feel a certain way, or my mind stops thinking a certain way, I go, oh, it's the 2 hour mark. And I look over and it goes 1 hour, 57 minutes. I'm like, yep, this is where I stop. Yeah. So the people who can do that for 9 hours, and they're super entertaining and funny, and they're playing a game really well, all while being entertaining at the same time, it is impressive in some level to have the stamina to be able to go that long. That's something that I can't do. I have done enough live streams, though, that I'm comfortable enough. Now, something I do is I have a side channel. I have two side channels. One is called Behind the Armchair. The other one is Armchair History Interactive. And the Armchair History Interactive is our game channel. And there I can do live streams where only like 50 people show up. So it's not a ton of people. There's no trolls. It's kind of small, and you don't feel as on the spot. It's a little smaller. So I have like a spot that's cozy. And like you said, you could mess with the YouTube algorithm if the videos aren't getting enough clicks. So if I do it kind of on the side, I can still have fun by streaming if I want to, without compromising the YouTube channel or embarrassing myself in front of a large amount of people. You kind of avoid both of those issues. So that's kind of my strategy with that. That's
a good strat. It's a muscle. It's a muscle that you kind of have to build up. It's how I see people that they look at editing and doing this whole YouTube thing, and they're like, oh man, I can't wrap my head around editing or writing a script or anything like that. And it's just, well, when you do it for so long, it's second nature. And I think that's with these streamers, you do it enough, and then you never think about it. It's all automatic.
Especially if they grew up. I mean, we grew up watching YouTube. A lot of these people grew up watching Twitch, and then they kind of get that. So we may have watched YouTube, and subconsciously we're understanding the flow of building a script and how the person's coming off and their editing. I think some of these kids, if they're growing up on live streams, when it's their time to become, for some of these people, becoming a social media presence, like if they go on YouTube or they go on Twitch, if they grew up on that, it comes much more naturally. And so for us, I feel like we probably, at least when I was younger, there was no Twitch or anything. I would just watch YouTube videos all the time. And so I think by the time I started, at least I had an idea for what I had to do, and then you practice it over a long period of time. But Twitch is so new in its popularity. Live streaming is still kind of unknown for me on how to do that right.
Yeah, it's a thing that you just slowly get used to. But yeah, that's the good old social media. This is the social media podcast hour. That's what this is.
Yeah, honestly, we did kind of talk about that and one thing I did want to actually bring up, you're mentioning the Twitter dopamine hits all the time. And I think this is the last thing we'll talk about regarding social media, because I think this is important. And then I've got some questions off that topic. But the one thing I just wrote down to bring up was YouTube Shorts, because you were mentioning scrolling and getting the dopamine hits. And I have realized so much how aggressive YouTube Shorts have been. I saw them kind of getting more aggressive last year, but I would say at the start of this year, I saw it really get aggressive, especially on your homepage now.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's just me, but I've had like, it'll show like 3 normal videos and then a giant short breaking the format of the homepage vertically, shooting across. Like, it's not even in its own section. Everything's spilling over. When you see the up next on the right side of your screen on a YouTube video, the top recommendations are all shorts. It pushes, and what that does is it's pushing all of the videos that would have been there down. So if your channel was surviving on like the bottom half of the top recommended, you're just gone. It's like only the top channels survive from that. So I even noticed when I started seeing that be more aggressive, that we started getting lower views. And then I would upload the same type of video as a short, and I could get 1 million or 2 million views on that. And I was like, this is wrong. Something's not right here. And you don't make any money on shorts. So it's, I don't see who's benefiting in that case. I do think YouTube... Go ahead.
YouTube's really desperately trying to take down TikTok, which is so dumb because they're completely different platforms.
Yep.
It makes no sense why YouTube looks at TikTok and even thinks that they're like a competitor. And it's YouTube's trying to do a jack of all trades thing, and it just doesn't work. Like, they have a very specific, they have videos. Just stick with videos. You don't do maybe the live stream. Sure, that's fine, but no, the live stream's not promoted on anybody.
Yeah,
it used to be promoted on everything, but like the shorts thing, I honestly think this is going to probably last like one more year or 2, and then they're going to drop it. Yeah, because this just, especially the fact that no one is getting paid, like you said. Yeah. They're expecting everyone just to do this for free. It's the most confusing way of going about this, because if YouTube thought, okay, well, like, we want to compete with TikTok, you know, make it worth it. Make having shorts actually monetarily useful. But of course they're not going to be useful because they're like a minute-long video. Yeah. So no ad's going to be worth it, going to bring in enough CPM to be worth a 1-minute video. Yep. And it's a question where it's like, it's an unwinnable thing if you're trying to compete with TikTok. Like, YouTube's never going to win. They're never going to win if they try to compete with TikTok. It's an entirely just different market. I would say YouTube's demographics are probably 10 years older on average than your average TikTok demographic. And I don't even know how TikTok people even make money. I think most of that shit's just from sponsors.
I don't think, in most cases, all I've seen from TikTok is them promoting longer and longer formats and allowing their TikToks to be longer because they know that that's what makes more money. So it's very odd. YouTube, I think, was chasing the trend more than they were looking at the data. That I've even posted a video. I posted a video that said like German perspective World War II compilation, and it just had all my videos about Germany and World War II. It didn't get that. It did get a decent amount of views, but at first it didn't get a lot. But it out-earned anything around it that got 2 or 3 times the amount of views, because that video was an hour or 2 long, that CPM goes up massively on the ads that are placed on it. So longer form content it always generates more, even with less views. It's way easier.
It's a trend that we don't really need to be a part of. And I think YouTube's going to eventually realize that this is pointless. They're going to rechange whatever they've done to the algorithm in the last year. They're going to reverse it.
Hopefully,
and I think they're going to just change. They're going to drop the shorts thing eventually. Yeah,
I am seeing.
There's no way this is sustainable.
I saw my editor sent me today a post where YouTube was saying, oh, we're now allowing, I think, either shorts to be linked back to a podcast or a long form content or vice versa. And I think now I've seen some videos or people talking about it, that YouTube's kind of realizing that podcasts are like really taking off and long form content is really taking off. And I think they're realizing they pivoted wrong in the last year or 2, where they were banking on shorts taking off, and really it's more podcasts and long form content people are listening to. I think there's even YouTube videos of mine where people don't even look at the animation, they're just listening to the videos. And so I think YouTube eventually, just through the data they're getting, through the money and the views and everything, are going to have to pivot if it's a financial decision and if they want to keep growing their platform. Because I don't think the shorts are taking off as much.
Oh, they're 100% going to pivot that way. I mean, especially with the whole new updates they've had for ads. With not allowing people to skip ads and stuff. They definitely know that long term is the way to go. They're just going about it also now in the most scummy way possible. And it's I guess we're lucky for the sake of our job that most people don't download ad block. But the way that YouTube is pushing this aggressive ads, we better hope that it doesn't become more popular.
Yeah. Well, I think they even are rolling out stuff, or they're experimenting from what I've heard. I think it's only rolled out in maybe one country, or like every 100th YouTube channel. They're experimenting where you can't use any ad block, and it'll prevent you from doing anything on YouTube if you have it on, or something along those lines. So they're kind of experimenting with it. But the thing is anything they experiment with eventually just becomes a reality, even if it's unpopular. Like removing the dislike button, if they experimented with it. I think I was one of the YouTube channels that was selected to just have it hidden when they were experimenting early, and I was so frustrated by it. I was even, the one time that was super interesting, and I'm glad they didn't go through with this, I was chosen as like one in a million channels, or one in a million, or 1 in 1,000, or something like that, to not have thumbnails on any video that you ever see while you're logged in. So I would have to log out to see what even my own videos look like. And they had that experiment last a month. Nobody talked about it because it was so rare.
Yeah.
But I looked it up, and it said, yeah, we picked a couple channels where you can't even see thumbnails. We auto-generate them because we might move toward that. And I was like, oh my gosh, that would be horrible. But the dislike button they went through with.
They really just kind of tortured you for a month.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, it was horrible. I couldn't even see my own videos.
Fuck with Griffin.
Yeah, that's it. Just me. I was the only one selected. One person from each country.
You're the one guinea pig in that.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is how the nature of it is, and we've gone around the cycle so much, and that's the funniest thing about doing this for so long. Eventually, the patterns. You just get tired of the cycle, and like with Twitter, there's always some Twitter debate. There's always some some new anger thing everyone's pissed about. And with YouTube, there's always some dumb thing YouTube's been doing, and YouTube's been doing some dumb new implementation ever since it's been a thing. And so it's just kind of like you just kind of roll with it. You roll with the waves. Yeah. And I guess we can just be thankful that we are at least, still doing this.
Yeah.
But yeah, enough social media.
Yep. I got some other questions. I think
they're like, I signed up for history.
Yeah, exactly. One thing I wanted to bring up, so this isn't getting into history just yet. We're teasing them. We'll slowly get into it. Something I want to bring up is I was looking through your most viewed videos, and typically that's not indicative of what the creator likes to do. If you look at my most viewed videos, I don't enjoy making a lot of those, but they're the ones that blow up. And I'm sure that's the case with a lot of YouTubers. They don't even expect those videos to blow up. But one thing I did notice is I saw so much stuff on fictional content like Fallout. I saw a couple other things that you had done, and I noticed you don't do those kind of things anymore. I'm curious about why you did those and maybe why you stopped, and then also if that led you, if scratching that itch, if you did enjoy those things, led you to go to Pointless Hub to do more fiction or to change up the whole format a bit. I'm just kind of curious about that.
Yeah, I haven't really done fictional lore videos for a while, which is funny because it's like I love doing those videos. It's one of those things where it's like I didn't want to just be put in a box doing only lore videos, because the channel was Alternate History Hub. So I wanted the lore videos to be kind of the advertisements almost for the rest of the channel. You know how it's like you have a few tentpole videos that are going to blow up, and they kind of bring in people that might stay for the rest of the content. At least that's how my channel is, because my channel has kind of a bunch of different stuff that I do. And the really niche alternate history nerd stuff, I think, gets the least amount of views. Nobody really cares about the alternate history stuff. But they come in because I talk about fictional lore stuff, or I talk about like ancient aliens, or I do the gimmick, big stuff that normal people that aren't super nerds actually care about.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I kind of did that for a few years, and then I tried to make it where every quarter, every other few months, I do something that's not alternate history related. But I think especially in like the last 2 years or so, time's just been like going really fast for one. So I look back and I'm like, oh man, it's been like 6 months and I haven't made this type of video or whatever. But I also was kind of like, hey, I wanted to stick closer to alternate history for a little bit, because I had a lot of people just kind of complaining and going like, oh, well, he hasn't made alternate history in so long, or oh, he's only been doing like this alternate geography stuff or whatever. So I thought, okay, I'm just gonna make hardcore alternate history stuff for the fans. And so I was kind of staying away from fictional lore for a little bit. I have wanted to get back into doing it, but I think for one, there's so many people now that make lore videos that are very specifically for like one niche. So I wanted to do a Warhammer 40k lore video. I've always wanted to do a Warhammer 40k lore video, but there's so many people that do 40k videos. So either I go in like all the way and make it in some special way that differentiates myself from everyone else, or I go into like the most like, I don't know. It would be something that I would have to put a lot of effort into.
Yeah.
I also had another video I wanted to do. A buddy of mine is super into a mech RPG game called BattleTech, and I really got into BattleTech too. It's like it's just like these super slow mechs and they fight each other, but the lore is super deep, and and it's kind of tied into history stuff too. It's like how Dune has a bunch of like houses and medieval elements, even though it's all in space. That's kind of what BattleTech has. It has a bunch of medieval elements, even though it's in space. So I think a bunch of history nerds could really get into it.
Yeah.
But it's also
There's definitely an overlap
niche
with that, I think, especially Warhammer. I bet if you did something on Warhammer, I doubt people are going to go, oh, I've seen other lore videos on it. I think just because of your branding or exposing people who like alternate histories to I think in some ways Warhammer is an alternate history, because even their map, at least their old world, I don't know too much about Warhammer, but I know their old one is based on, it looks like a globe in a way, just with distorted continents and exaggerations of fantasy elements.
I think that would be fun to do. I mean, I usually do it when I feel like views are going down a little bit, and there's not, I've almost gone too, it's like a wave. It's like you have that one video that's like super popular, and then I use that to kind of fuel the rest of the alternate history videos. And now I'm kind of in that lower end of the wave right now, where I'm like, oh, views aren't that great. So honestly, probably in like the next month or two, I could probably do a lore video, and hopefully that would explode.
I think people would like that. Even like Scythe and other popular kind of alternate history, but like fantasy worlds. I think people are getting into those in some cases more than the history itself. I think there's something fun,
for sure.
Especially because some people can contribute, and their own fan-made content can be, it encourages creativity because it's born out of creativity. I think some people now I don't really fall in that camp. I don't follow a lot of those, but I understand the appreciation a lot of history nerds tend to have for that. I think there's some that I could probably get into, but for now, I'm just sticking with the real world stuff.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, that's your bread and butter. I think with me, alternate history itself is inherently just a super nerdy niche thing. So if I talk about some niche nerdy lore that kind of has some holdover that people like, people are going to like that.
Yeah. A lot of it's becoming mainstream, though. I mean, we've got a Fallout TV show. You did it. Your old. Yeah. I think one of your most popular videos was on Fallout lore, and I bet the people playing Fallout 3 in New Vegas, that was very niche. If you said you played those kind of games, people didn't really know. But I think nowadays, I feel like a lot of things that were considered nerdy, even video games in general in the early 2000s or before then, but I think we grew up as that transition changed. People are viewing them as much more mainstream now.
Oh yeah, Warhammer I would not say is niche anymore. BattleTech I would say is niche.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I'll do a lore thing in a little bit. I just kind of, I don't know, I'm kind of going back and forth with my content, because it's like I like talking about like alternate history and history stuff, but I'm also not like an expert in the level that, like, I think especially history YouTube, the way that it is now, there's so many people that create a channel specifically dedicated to one era, and I'm not that. And it's like, I love those. I love all those channels that focus specifically on like one era, but they also have like PhDs on the stuff. They know, they wrote dissertations on the 5-minute video that they're talking, like Tolden Stone. Tolden Stone's like my favorite history channel on YouTube, and he just talks about ancient Rome, and he has books about ancient Rome. But it's like, I can never do that because I'm not specifically a. I'm general. I'm a general person.
Yep.
So I think what I'm doing, I want to kind of do with the channel is kind of pivot from just that alternate history stuff. I have another I have a guy that I'm bringing in that is kind of he's doing alternate history, but not in that predicting sense. He's bringing a fictional element to it, that it's a story. And I think that's kind of what I want to do with the channel, is I want to turn the channel not into an educational channel anymore. I want to make it just a place for like super nerds that like countries and flags, and to just talk about stuff.
I think there's plenty of an audience for that too. Like even Kaiserreich for Hearts of Iron was very, I see that being more popular in some cases than the actual history.
Oh, 100%.
So, yeah.
I think Alternate History Hub, I think it's been kind of stunted a little bit in the last few years by this artificial constraint that I put on it for no reason. Because the way that I do alternate history isn't even like how alternate history is. Like alternate history is fiction. It's just about telling a story.
Yeah.
But I was using it as a way to teach history, but that's just not really how YouTube is anymore.
Right.
With like, it's almost like they're kind of excuses to talk about the history itself, but I might as well just talk about the history.
Yeah.
So what I kind of want to do is if I do an alternate history video from now on, kind of just have fun with it. Like do it in a way that's not like, it's not misinformation, but it is.
You just lean into
like,
it.
It's more short stories.
Yeah.
Now.
That's cool.
Yeah. I think like, I don't want to just have it be like, oh, this is 100% what's going to happen, because then that requires like so much research, way more research than like a normal history thing.
Yeah, it does.
Because you have all these avenues and stuff that you have to go down, and that just hampers it.
Yeah.
Because nobody really cares or, thinks about the back end work that goes into it, because all they see is the finished product. But if you're telling a story, if you're talking about it, then people appreciate the story, and they don't care if you don't have the research, because it's about the characters at the end of the day, not necessarily the alternate history nature of it.
I think that's a fun idea. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, so I'm in a pass with it. Right now, Pointless Hub is a lot easier to do.
Yeah, it's doing so well, man. It's doing so well.
Oh, thank you. I mean, I can talk about, Transformers or some media that from my childhood way more easily than talking about, researching this historical
and people
thing.
like it, so it shows that type of, I think you might find something even with Alternate History Hub where if you lean into that,
I think
people like
I need
it.
to put that Pointless Hub energy into it. Yeah. I think that'd be fun, because I think but honestly, I haven't really admit, it's like with Alternate History Hub, I'm trying to rekindle that back into it. It's how you have like with your channel, sometimes sometimes it's a passion and sometimes it's a job.
Yep.
Like with Alternate History Hub, for at least I think ever since Pointless Hub's really taken off, Alternate History Hub's felt more of a job, and it's just because I've been approaching it wrong. I think I need to just approach it in a fun, carefree way. Talk about less important stuff.
I think that's necessary sometimes too. I had a time, mostly last year when I was working on, or maybe the year before as well, but I was working on our video game, and that was so much more fun to me, and I was so much more passionate about it and present that I really neglected the YouTube channel and what we had something very strong. Even with our website, everything was very strong, and I really let that go to get hyper focused on that. But I think now revisiting the channel, now that the game is done, I feel like you get kind of some of the creative energy back just by taking a break and exploring something else, and then you can kind of bring that back. So with what you're doing with Pointless Hub, I think it's a nice way to kind of adventure out, try creative things, and then you can, when you think it's time, you can adapt or change Alternate History Hub to those things that you learned, or just implementing more things you genuinely enjoy to making it more, like you said, less of a job and more of a passion. So yeah.
That's good. And so you get the idea.
Yeah.
You get what I'm talking about. But yeah, I mean, that's just kind of the nature of doing this stuff for so long, is your interests shift a little bit or they change. I think, but going back to the original thing of lore, I think I really need to just bite the bullet and do another lore video. I think maybe I wanted to really do the Battletech video this year, but I think that's a little too niche right now. I think to make the channel grow again, I think I just got to do that 40K video.
I think that would do very well. It sounds like mixing alternate history with Pointless Hub. That's what it sounds like to do those kind of videos, where you get people who like a certain piece of pop culture, whether it's a movie or a game that's popular, and you're kind of diving into the history. Or I noticed these video essays that really break down games or media. I think those have been taking off and doing very well. So I think that's a good pivot. I do have some fan questions, which I think it's...
Thanks for listening. To hear the full version of this chat, become a Sarge or Officer tier member over on armchairhistory.tv. Use code ArmchairChats for 60% off of your first month.